This video we're going to be going over 10 tips to give you better awareness inside Warzone. It's been a full year since we made a similar video to this, and I wanted to make it updated because there's a lot of changes with perks and everything going on in Warzone right now. If you do enjoy content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we try to reach our goal of 50k subscribers. Click that link in the description and subscribe to our second channel. Now, as I said, this video should overall improve your awareness inside Caldera or Rebirth, whatever game mode you prefer playing. Aside from the standard, make sure you're using a headset because it's going to give you directional audio. Make sure you use the boost low setting because I do think that's the best at hearing footsteps. And also make sure you adjust your brightness as well as color settings in game to overall give you the best picture quality. But none of these are really changed even with the introduction of Caldera. At tip number 1, you should be focusing on looking out for tracer fire and lasers in the game. Now, some lasers from Modern Warfare weapons are still visible on walls and through walls in some cases as well. And also tracer fire, especially if people are using some blueprints that have special tracers, are very easy to spot. That way you can see where enemies are shooting from, which direction, what direction they're shooting in, so you know where the other enemy team is as well. So that kind of gives you some indication of 2 enemy teams, which is very valuable information, especially on Caldera more so than Rebirth, because in Rebirth you're more likely able to see the enemy teams in general anyway. But this is something really easy you can look out for whilst you're in game to help you spot enemy teams. At tip number 2, you want to make sure you're using Combat Scout. At least 2 players in your team, if you're playing in a quad on Caldera, should be using Combat Scout. It's a completely broken perk at the moment, and it allows you to see enemy players through walls. If you land a couple of shots on them, it also highlights them for your teammates, which is extremely valuable, especially when team firing, and especially since on Caldera, every wall you could pretty much shoot through. And when they are behind the wall, you want to pay attention to the direction they're facing, as that is where they're likely running towards. And if you know the map really well, then you can kind of guess where they're going to be going to. The same idea applies to snapshot grenades as well. And as you can imagine, if you're pairing snapshots with Combat Scout and you've got a quad, you can actually pretty much see players through walls on a regular basis, which is pretty much wall hacks if you think about it, especially if you have restocked on there as well. And in my opinion, this is a way more effective way of spotting out campers inside buildings than a heartbeat sensor, especially after the heartbeat nerf. Now, the next step is also very important, and that is working on your communication with your teammates. So make sure you ping. Even though the ping system is a bit broken at the moment, just make sure you try and ping an enemy if you can. More importantly, make sure your callouts are clear and concise to your teammates. Maybe your teammates missed the player that you're shooting at with Combat Scout, or they missed your snapshot grenade and never seen what was going on. And if you are focused on different directions, you could potentially be giving each other valuable information that the other player might need to know and didn't think they needed to know. So make sure you're working on your comms in game. And another tip is make sure you're looking at the Big Tack Map, especially on Caldera. This is more important than Rebirth. But on Caldera, if an enemy player takes a vehicle, it will disappear off the Big Tack Map. If they take a contract, it will also disappear off the Big Tack Map. And that way you can kind of get a rough idea of where enemy teams are. So if you've pulled up the Big Tack Map and you've just seen a contract disappear, or you've just seen a vehicle disappear, that is because one of the enemy players have just taken it. So make sure you get in a habit of opening up your Big Tack Map. Not only is it going to help you plan out where it is you need to go next, but also could give you some really valuable information that you didn't know before. The next tip is probably the most obvious one, and that is UAVs. There's a reason why everyone always tries to get a UAV in the game. You always hear UAVs go up in game. Is because if you know where enemy players are and they don't know where you are, that is the main major advantage of any game mode inside Warzone. So make sure you are using UAVs, and make sure you call out certain pings or the pings that you want to be traveling to your teammates, like I said before. After you buy that first all-important loadout, your next focus should be getting a UAV, because now a lot of people don't actually choose Ghost anymore after the nerf, so now it's even more valuable than it was when I made the previous video. Now, if ghosted players are stood still for a short period of time, so i.e. camping, then they will show up on a standard UAV, which is going to give you some extremely valuable information on those campers that you want to kill. Now, let's say you don't have enough cash, or you don't have a buy station nearby. Pick up a bounty or a big game bounty. It will give you a rough idea of where enemy players are. If you decide to push it, it's going to be great, because once you win that gunfight, you'll get cash to then buy another UAV. If you don't decide to push it, that's okay too, but it gives you an idea of where enemy players are and maybe where you want to avoid going to. So that's just something that you can use to give yourself a rough idea of enemy teams and their locations. The next big tip is all about buy stations. Everyone wants to land near a buy station at the start of a game, especially so that they can get their loadouts, or even later on in the game when some of their teammates are dead, they're usually traveling towards a buy station to buy someone back. So every time you approach a buy station, you need to assume there's enemy players nearby. Make sure you check those buildings very thoroughly. The amount of people that love to camp buy stations and steal your cash and use it to buy their teammates back is absolutely insane. The next tip's all about major sound cues. Now the two ones I'm mainly focusing on here are revive sounds, especially after you've gotten a down, and also loadout drop sounds. Now first of all, revive sounds are really important. If you knock a player and you can hear them getting stuck to get revived, what you want to do is push that fight, because one player is going to be downed and the other one is going to be in a revive animation. So that means neither of them are ready for a gunfight, so it should allow you to get easy shots off. The most important thing though is make sure you focus on the player that is reviving, not the person that's downed. Loadout drop sounds are also very important, because if you can hear a loadout drop and you know the sound of it, then that means players nearby on a buy station have just bought a loadout drop. And that allows you to decide whether you want to push that gunfight or stay away from the gunfight. Especially if you only have ground loot weapons, you might choose to avoid that gunfight because obviously the other team has an advantage. But if you also have your own loadout weapons, it could give you the opportunity to actually kill one or two of the straggling players that are picking up the loadout from the box. The next tip is Rebirth Only, and considering how popular this game mode is right now, a lot of players will want to hear this one, but every time you kill an enemy player, you get one singular ping, like a UAV, to where their teammates are. And this is very important because it extends across the entire map, not just if they're in the similar location. And this gives you a good understanding if you can get more kills with that same team, or even if their teammates are like somewhere entirely across the map. And that way you might need to focus on fighting another team instead. The next tip is very important, and that is jiggle peeking. Now you want to be able to jiggle peek while splitting up at the same time, and what this allows you to do is peek out of a window or out of a doorway but still keeping cover. So you want to be moving left and right in between your cover and seeing if you can spot any enemies out windows, doorways, or before you cross even into open spaces. Now snaking can be also added into this list. Now snaking isn't as good as it was in previous COD games, but you can definitely bob up and down if you're behind a piece of cover to see if enemies are pushing you. But what this allows you to do is if you do take a little bit of damage, you can instantly get back behind cover without dying completely, and that is super important to staying alive. The final tip is centering and screen swiping. Now, first of all, with centering, most people should know what this is by now, because this actually helps out with your aim as well. But make sure your aim is within the horizon, so it's pretty much dead center in your screen, but also focusing on certain areas of interest. So maybe a doorway, for example, or a window where players could be. And that way, if someone does come through a doorway, you're already prepared for the gunfight before they are, because they can't actually see you and you're already focused in their direction. But also screen swiping I want to focus on as well, and you'll see me do this a lot in the gameplay you've probably been watching. But what this means is make sure you shift your camera left and right, especially if you're on console. This is a very big tip to do because you don't have that huge FOV that you do have on PC, and you need to be able to see if players are looking at you from left or right, or up and down as well. And you'll see me swipe my screen or do a full 360 sometimes when I'm slide cancelling, just to see if players are coming around me, if there's something that I've missed, or if I do spot a slight movement anywhere. It's really important to do this, but like I said, it's more important for players that are on console than on PC. So there we have it. Those are 10 huge tips that should give you better awareness inside Warzone. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we try to reach our goal of 50k subscribers, and also click that link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel. And thank you very much for watching.